Good day, my name is Bluesuit and today I'll be going over my review of the fantasy grand strategy army building auto battler known as Hero's Hour. In Hero's Hour, you lead your city to greatness as you raise armies to tame the lands around you and conquer your rival factions. Heavily inspired by the Heroes of Might and Magic series, Hero's Hour first launched its 1.0 version on itch.io back in June, where it saw several updates before making it over to Steam later this week. Equal parts city builder and auto battler, this casual take on the genre will have you raising armies of fantasy creatures to slay opposition armies, but also building up your main town, managing resources, and capturing contested resource generation points like sawmills and gold mines. When the game begins, similar to the Civilization series, you can choose how big of a map you want to play on. These range from tiny to sprawling, with even the option to create your own maps. The map creator tool is really impressive here, and there are lots of options to make some really creative maps, since it basically gives you every tool that the developer has to build any kind of building, terrain, enemy, or item anywhere you want. For my first few matches, I chose the smallest maps to kind of learn how the game is supposed to go, but it's really in the larger maps where I'd had the most fun because it really gives you a chance to fill out your skill trees a bit more and experience some more of Hero's Hour's RPG elements. Once you've decided how big of a map and how many opposing neighbors you want, it's time to decide what faction and hero you want to play. This is really what gives Hero's Hour its huge replayability because there are 11 different factions and each one has 6 heroes, each with their preset skill trees, so finding out which one works best for you will likely take several playthroughs. Each faction also has 2 unique skills as well, and there are dozens of total skills for you to test out. My favorites were always skills that helped me get more units on the road so I wouldn't have to head back to town every time I wanted to restock my army. Skills like Diplomacy let you pay fallen enemies to join your ranks after a fight, or Demonology that lets you sacrifice a portion of the XP that you would have earned to summon demonic units into your army. Additionally, each faction has unique buildings and build paths for their main base that set them apart further. The Enclave, for example, are a serpent-like race of High Lords and Snake Speakers. Their buildings let them build troop types like the Basilisk, and they can even build a slithering temple where they can offer valuable artifacts to summon great Hydras into their ranks. Or the Arcane, a magic-heavy race that can build things like the Ziggurat to give all of your heroes an extra spell to cast in battle. These racial differences make playing each faction a new experience, and even more fun if you can capture another faction's base to both knock them out of the game and gain access to all their buildings and resources. Gameplay happens in turns similar to other grand strategy titles, with your faction always going first. Enemy factions then take their turns, and even with a handful of enemy factions, gameplay isn't really slowed down too much. Each turn counts as a day, and for every week that passes, the neutral enemies on the map grow a little bit stronger, so it's important to stay ahead of the game's power curve. Also, you can only build one building in your base per day, and recruits only refresh at the beginning of the new week, so you'll have to open up your base regularly to see what new buildings are available and how you want to prioritize which building gets built first. In the beginning of the game, the fights that you can pick will be pretty limited because most enemies are going to be way stronger than your army. Some of them are guarding really great resources and they're so strong that you might just have to ignore them for most of the match, like portals. These heavily guarded doorways often lead to secret worlds full of resources and rare troop types, and maintaining control of the portal means that you won't have to share any of its bounty with your rival factions. Using the terrain in this way is a huge part of how the maps are designed too. Some focus more on sea battles, and whoever builds boats first has a huge advantage. One map I was on had these guard posts that segmented the map, and if you were able to take them and fill them with allied troops, it would greatly decrease where enemy forces were able to go, and allowed me to take most of the map's resources for myself. Combat in Hero's Hour happens almost automatically, and can even be skipped completely in the settings if you want. Before a battle begins, you can see how strong an enemy is in relation to your army by hovering over them, so you can usually tell whether or not you'll win it before it even begins. In the fight, you can tell your troops vaguely what to do, but most of the time it's better just to let them figure it out. The most meaningful way that you can contribute though is through spells. With over 80 spells and abilities in the game from all different schools of magic, there are lots of things you can do, from direct damage, summoning more allies, buffing, debuffing, and much more. For players who find combat too boring, it's probably better to play a hero or a faction who's more spell focused to give you more to do in combat. There is also multiplayer in the game, but it kind of feels like a letdown. It's only local multiplayer, and each player will take turns controlling their factions using the same keyboard. The one major downside to Hero's Hour is that it still doesn't feel like a polished game yet. Menus are still pretty cumbersome, and there are still unexplained effects and missing tooltips, and the game crashes a surprising amount for how simple it is. Fortunately, the game autosaves after every turn, so you're never going to lose more than a couple minutes of play, but I do hope to see these issues ironed out soon. You can pick up Hero's Hour when it launches on March 1st, 2022 for PC. It's been around $10 on itch.io, and the publisher has mentioned that it won't be more than $15 when it comes to Steam. It certainly has a few blemishes on the surface, but it definitely meets its goal of being an addictive little game that's simple enough for anyone to pick up and have fun with. So I'm valuing Hero's Hour at $12, and I definitely recommend it to fans of the Heroes and Might and Magic series who would be interested in a much more simplified and casual experience. I hope you enjoyed this review of Hero's Hour. Come see me on Twitch where you can watch our reviews in progress. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Until next time.